So today I'm talking about the number one mistake we see people making when trying to deal with anxiety. And an awful lot of the clients that we eventually work with sometimes have spent decades trying to resolve their anxiety. They've been putting the effort in, they're doing the self work, but they're still stuck with anxiety. And I do mean it keeps them stuck. And this sort of behavior just doesn't help at all. So Dr. Joe Dispenza once said, we can either be defined by a story of the past, or we can be defined by a vision of the future. So what does that mean? Well, typically these people will say, I have anxiety. I've always been an anxious person. I have these anxiety symptoms. Anxiety, anxiety, anxiety. And they'll spend time in support groups moaning to other people that I have these anxiety symptoms. Does anybody else have anxiety problems when they sleep? Does anybody else have this anxiety problem? And they talk about it all the time. And typically they wear their friends and family down because they're always moaning and focusing on anxiety. Now, we've worked with thousands of people over the years, and we always do something with every person who comes in who wants to overcome their anxiety. And that is we change that identity, we change that belief. We all have very strong rules and ideas in our head. And I don't blame anybody for getting into this state, but typically people get diagnosed with anxiety by their GP. And then they start to focus on it and read on it and get into it and know everything there is about the anxiety problem, but they're not focusing on the anxiety solution. And sadly, an awful lot of the old traditional therapies, CBT and counseling, will sit you down. And a lot of our clients moan that we go over the past again and again and again. And that keeps us stuck. Going over it, staying in that anxiety mode keeps us stuck. So how do we change it? And this is where you need to work with somebody who can change your beliefs and your identities. And for me, it was I read a book that asked a question, and it was, how would you rather feel instead? What do you want to do? What do you want to be doing? What do you want to be enjoying? Who are you going to be around? How is getting rid of anxiety going to change your life? So we focus on creating that new identity of people being calm, confident, in control, and being happy. So we shift all that energy, we shift that focus into the new person that you want to be. So when we work with clients, maybe 5% of the time we bring people in and we'll sit and we'll talk about the problems, but then it's using tools, really powerful NLP and hypnosis and neuroscience tools to start to build a new identity, a new version of you, because we all have multiple sort of personalities inside of us. Don't tell your GP I said that, but we all do. And if we start to develop this new personality, we see people very quickly starting to reduce that anxiety down, and they start to become more successful. They become more confident. You see the posture changing week after week. In usually 4 to 6 weeks, they go from being the anxiety identity into being this new identity, whatever they want to call it. And for me, it was being in control. You know, my anxiety was so bad, it was holding me back from everything and causing me to stammer and feel depressed. And working on this on my own, it took me 2 long years, but then I started working as a disc jockey with loads of confidence and success. And I've been running businesses all the time since, instead of being labeled with that disability label that the doctors wanted to give me. So when we move into doing this, people start to build up the confidence, they feel better, they get a vision of how they want to be, and little by little it grows, and it's like a snowball effect. And that the more people get into it, the more enthusiastic they get about it, and then they start enjoying life. And then we see them improve the relationships. They're doing better with their friends. Quite often they get better jobs and pay rises. And almost everybody can do this if they catch their anxiety early enough. Even some of the people we've seen with anxiety problems for 20 or so years have managed to go on and completely eliminate it, with the worst case scenario bringing it down by 95%. So now is the time to sit down, maybe with a notepad, and say to yourself, what do you want instead? What would you rather be doing? What would you rather be enjoying? Who do you want to be around? And it is changing that switch of, I want to be normal, I don't want to be anxious, to what is it you'd like to replace it with instead? And as we work on that identity, and if we do it right, we can do this so quickly. It's unbelievable. Some of the times we've seen people doing it in 2 to 3 weeks, but typically it takes 4 to 6 weeks. And this is really what we need to do is we need to move that focus of where our energy goes. Somebody said to me the other day, where energy goes, happiness flows. And there's lots of similar sayings out there, but it is important that we need to focus and take our energy. And if we start to leave the past behind and start to create that future, as Dr. Joe Dispenza says, it's amazing how anxiety, depression, stress, and lots of other issues can be healed. I like the word healed because we're not fighting anxiety, we're moving towards where we want to be. So the first step for everybody, if you haven't already done this, we have a free anxiety relief pack, and that means you can just focus maybe 20 minutes or so a day listening to that powerful hypnosis audio, using the ebook, finding the right breathing exercises, and that'll bring your anxiety down. And when you get to the point where you decide you want to have a better life and you want to start working and eliminating that anxiety, we've also got a link for a free assessment call. And that just lets you have a chat with one of our team, usually myself. You can tell us exactly what's going on, what you dislike about it, but we like you to think about how you want to be instead and what you want to be doing. I hope that's helpful. We'll see you in the next video.